So that's the origin of the thought. This whole thought started from mid-1700s and still ongoing. There have been a number of universal languages proposed and actually structured. The latest one was Esperanto. And the sole purpose of Esperanto was to eliminate wars, actually. And it was actually created by a eye doctor, an ophthalmologist, a Swedish ophthalmologist. So before we start my presentation for the universal language, I would like to present the origin of the language. When was that the human race, human being, actually got interested to communicate? When did it happen? A number of scientists, a number of sociologists have done research ever since the mid-1700s. But to this day, nobody has come to a conclusion how this phenomenon took place. Except in late 1900, 1995 to 1997, a sociologist and researcher called T. Fitch. T is the first initial, the last name is F-I-T-C-H. He came up with the idea that actually the language was created, the interest to communicate was created by mothers. And that was based on Darwin's principle and theory. That hormonal love between child and the mother forced the mother to create the language in order to protect the children. So that's one theory. Everything that we have these days, based on how the language actually originated, is all theory and based on a group of hypotheses. So we don't have any definition. We don't know actually where the language actually originated except this Darwinian principle, that mothers were the one who originated it. Now, for the next few minutes, I would like to invite you to my imaginary world, a hypothetical world, all right? Let's imagine, just imagine, how would the world be if we were always speaking the same language? Let's imagine we were always speaking English, the whole world. There were no German, there were no Arabic, there were no Chinese, no. Do you think the world would be in a better shape? Do you think we would have wars if we were always speaking the same language? If you look at the history for the last 200 years, the wars that took place, not all, but most, happened between countries that spoke different languages. Do you think we would have this much poverty in the world? Do you think we would have children in South Africa with no education? Do you think we would have atrocities in Sudan and Somalia to the females, to the ladies, to the women? I think not. Why? The reason behind that is that a universal language will ultimately change the standard. Will ultimately change the standard. Let me give an example. Based on the census in 2007, March of 2007, in New York City, the census found out that there are 170 different languages that are spoken in New York City. New York City. It's mind-boggling. 170 different languages are being spoken in New York City. Now, beside that civic structure, beside that law and order in place in New York City, what other component are keeping all these nationalities, all these different languages together? It's the English language. Just imagine, if everything was in place, but that common language of English was not there, it would have been absolute mayhem and chaos. Right? It's common sense. And all these references that I'm making is all scientific. I'm sure if you go to Bible or religious entities, there are references that we are not exploring tonight. So we are only looking from the scientific prism, the universal language. You probably say that English is that language of the universal language. But based on the statistic that presented recently, only 1.8 billion people of the people on the earth actually speak English. Only 27%. The population is about 6.3 billion. So is English actually that universal language? We don't know. It may be, maybe in future. There is a society called International Auxiliary Language Society and the auspices of the United Nations, that they're actually trying to create a universal language. The world leaders see the need for that universal language. Why? Because they want to change the standards. They want to change standards for the betterment of the human being, for the human race. So there will be equality for the children, as much as it's here in African countries, in the deprived, middle-class countries, or deprived countries. So we will not be able to comprehend the need for the universal language until we understand the strive and hunger for the unity of the mankind, or the human race. Unless we do not understand that we ultimately all have to live together, and that unity and unification of the human being is essential of the future of the human race, we will not be able to comprehend the need of this universal language. We need to understand it first. I think we all need to understand that the human race is a fruit of one tree and the leaves of one branch. Until we do not start thinking about instead of us, of all of us, the whole human being, we will not realize the need of this universal language. Some of you probably thinking and looking at me like, who's this lunatic and what is he talking about? But believe me, there are a group of people on the international stage that are trying to develop this international language, or international auxiliary language. I will leave you with these words. You may say, I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope one day you will join us and the world will live as one.